My dad forgot to hang up. I heard every word. She's a burden. I stayed quiet, sold my $980,000 home, transferred everything, vanished. They returned from Europe smiling until the key didn't fit. The house empty. The note: a burden did this. Hey Reddit. My name is Cassidy. I'm 34 years old and I used to believe that loyalty would eventually be recognized. That if you just kept giving, kept loving, kept being there, they'd finally see your worth. I was wrong. I bought my home when I was 30, a beautiful 3-bedroom craftsman-style house with wraparound porches and bay windows tucked in a quiet neighborhood on the coast. It was worth nearly $1 million and I paid for every cent of it myself. No loans from family. No cosigners. Just me, my career in cybersecurity, and the years of grinding I had done to save and invest wisely. And still, despite everything I'd achieved, in my parents' eyes I was always the one who needed help. Why? Because I was single. Because I chose not to have kids. Because I didn't follow their timeline or expectations like my younger brother Evan, the golden child. Evan, who dropped out of college twice. Evan, who has a new job every 6 months. Evan, who somehow, despite being financially irresponsible, constantly received praise and support while I got guilt-tripped every time I so much as booked a solo trip. Still, I never rubbed my success in their faces. In fact, when things got tough for them a few years ago, I was the one who offered a hand. When my dad lost his job unexpectedly during a wave of layoffs, I invited both my parents to live with me temporarily, just until they could get back on their feet. I cleared out the guest room, updated the bath, and made space. I was happy to do it. I wanted to help. At the time, I still believed that family meant something. They moved in with smiles, saying they appreciated the offer and that it would just be for a few months. That was 4 years ago. In those 4 years, they slowly made themselves comfortable. Not in the cozy, homey way, no. They began treating the place like theirs. My dad started rearranging furniture without asking. My mom started inviting friends over for brunch like it was her property. They criticized how I decorated, how I cooked, even how I spent my weekends. But worst of all, they talked about me like I was an obligation, like I had done them a favor, but now I was a project they were stuck with. Still, I bit my tongue. I let them stay because I kept telling myself they were my parents and maybe one day they'd acknowledge the sacrifices I made. And then came the call. It was a Tuesday. I had just gotten out of a work meeting and noticed I had a missed call from my dad. He'd been trying to reach me, but I couldn't answer during work. I called back. It rang once, then went to voicemail. But instead of a beep, the line stayed open. At first I thought it was just background noise. Then I heard my mom's voice. "I don't know how much longer we can keep doing this," she said. Then my dad chuckling, "Cassidy. She's a burden. Always has been. Independent. Please. She wouldn't survive a month without someone picking up after her." My stomach dropped. I pressed the phone closer to my ear, barely breathing. He continued laughing like it was a joke. "She acts like she's doing us a favor, but she's pathetic. She's never going to have a family. Might as well let us enjoy the house. At least someone will get some use out of it." My mom joined in, her voice colder than I've ever heard it. "She's lucky we're even here. No one else would tolerate her. You know how she is." I ended the call before they realized it was still going. I sat frozen on my office floor for a long time. I wasn't shocked that they talked about me, but the things they said, the way they said them, it shattered something. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't storm into the house and confront them, because for the first time in my life I saw everything with perfect clarity. They were never grateful. They never saw me as equal. They were never going to. So I got up, made myself a cup of tea, and started planning. Over the next 2 months I said nothing. I came home from work and smiled like normal. I made dinner. I laughed at their fake jokes. I listened to them talk about their upcoming European vacation, a 3-week tour they were excited to take using their retirement funds, which, mind you, I had indirectly subsidized by housing them rent-free. I waited until the exact day they left for Europe. Once the Uber pulled away from the driveway, I got to work. I already had the house listed privately through a realtor I trusted. The sale was fast. Competitive market. A quiet buyer. Within 10 days the papers were signed. My house sold for $980,000. I liquidated my accounts, moved my assets to new banks, and canceled every recurring subscription bill and mail delivery tied to the address. I sold the furniture they used, donated the rest. Everything they touched gone. Then I left a single envelope on the kitchen counter, placed where I knew they'd see it the second they walked in if they ever made it inside. Inside the envelope was a note. No speech. No paragraphs. Just one line written in black ink. Surprise. A burden. Did this. Then I locked the door behind me, took a photo of the empty living room, and left. I moved states. Got a fresh apartment, new number, new life, and I never looked back. 3 weeks after my parents left for Europe, the house I had poured my soul into was gone. Sold, emptied, erased of their presence, and I was miles away, sitting in a sunlit rental overlooking a quiet stretch of coastline with nothing but the sound of waves and the knowledge that for once I had chosen myself. That peace didn't last long. The call started the moment their plane landed. At first I didn't recognize the number. I assumed it was spam, but something made me listen to the voicemail anyway. It was my mother, and she wasn't yelling yet. Cassidy, we just got back. We're standing in front of the house and the key doesn't work. Please tell me this is some kind of joke. Her voice cracked at the end, that sharp edge of panic she used to wield like a blade. I stared at my phone for a long moment before putting it face down on the kitchen counter. I didn't respond. An hour later the voicemails became more frantic. This isn't funny, Cassidy. The alarm went off when we tried to get in. There's another car in the driveway. Who the hell is in the house? Then finally came my dad's voice. Cold, measured, dangerous. What did you do? You better call us back immediately. You're going to regret this. I almost laughed. Regret? That was all I'd done for years. Regret giving them the benefit of the doubt. Regret shrinking myself to avoid being labeled dramatic, bitter, ungrateful. Regret staying silent when I should have left long ago. Now I didn't regret a damn thing. I turned off the ringer, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat out on the porch watching seagulls dart across the sky while the sun dipped below the horizon. It was the first time in years I didn't flinch at the sound of my phone. The next morning I had 27 missed calls. A few from unfamiliar numbers. Several from Mom. One from Evan, my brother, who hadn't spoken to me in months. I finally opened the message he sent. What the hell is going on? Mom and Dad said you sold a house. Please tell me that's not true. I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, I called my lawyer and asked him to forward a copy of the sale documentation and deed transfer to my private email just to have everything ready. If they tried to claim fraud or make some wild accusation, I wanted receipts in hand because I knew them. They wouldn't apologize. They'd play the victim and they'd escalate. Sure enough, that same evening I received a message from my cousin Danny. Just giving you a heads up. Your mom called Aunt Linda sobbing, said you betrayed them, that you locked them out of their own home. I laughed out loud. Their own home. The entitlement in that statement was almost impressive. Danny added she left out the part where they lived there rent-free for 4 years and called you a burden. Of course she did. But what happened next was even more satisfying than I anticipated. The new owners of the house, an older couple named Steve and Ellen, called the police when my parents returned for a third time, trying to reason with them in the driveway and refusing to leave. Apparently my mother screamed that she was the real homeowner and demanded to be let in. My dad tried to intimidate the new owner by flashing old mail with our last name on it. Didn't work. The cops showed up, took one look at the deed Steve showed them, and issued my parents a formal warning. One more incident and they'd be charged with trespassing. That was the moment reality hit them. They had lost their golden nest. And I didn't just take the keys, I took their power. They had treated me like a guest in my own home. Now they were the ones locked out, confused, angry, humiliated. I received one more voicemail that night. It was my mother. Quiet. Defeated. Hollow. Cassidy. How could you do this? You've ruined everything. We're homeless. You sold the house from under us. You're not who we thought you were. That last line stuck with me. You're not who we thought you were. Good. Because who they thought I was. A pushover. A free ride. A burden. Someone to be used until I snapped. But they never expected me to snap like this. I didn't just leave. I erased myself from their version of reality. I called Evan the next morning not because I owed him anything but because I needed to hear it from his own mouth. He picked up immediately. Cass, thank God. What the hell is going on? I paused, then said calmly, did you know they were talking about me like that? Did you know they called me a burden? He didn't speak for a while. Then I knew they treated you like crap. I didn't know it was that bad. But I mean, they're still our parents. I almost laughed. You say that like it's an excuse. Like I was supposed to let them destroy me just because they gave me life. I'm not saying that, he began, but I cut him off. I gave them 4 years of rent-free living, covered their groceries, took care of everything while they sat around planning vacations. And the minute I wasn't useful, they trashed me. Another long pause. I get it. He finally said, I don't blame you, but you know they're not gonna stop. They're already calling lawyers. I'm ready, I said. Let them. But they didn't. Because what could they say? That I sold my own property. That I exercised my legal right to remove 2 grown adults who never paid rent, never signed a lease, and never treated me like family. They had nothing. No claim. No control. The silence that followed was deafening and delicious. In the weeks that followed, I found something I didn't expect: peace. Not the fleeting kind that comes when things are temporarily quiet, but the deep anchoring kind that sets in when you finally stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. I redecorated my new place slowly with intention. Every item I chose reminded me of freedom. A framed print above my bed that said soft doesn't mean weak. A welcome mat that read no uninvited guests. And on my fridge, stuck with a magnet, the last line of the note I left on that empty counter: surprise. A burden did this. Every time I opened the fridge for oat milk, it made me smile. I'd been a burden in their eyes for too long. Now I was a storm. And when I left, I didn't just walk away. I burned the bridge behind me and danced in the glow.